reaction I see.
This is one that nobody else has.
In 1979, Jean Seberg was found dead in her small car in Paris, her body wrapped in a blanket beside a bottle of alcohol and a trembling suicide note written in tear-soaked handwriting. For more than 4 decades, the world believed it was a suicide, but a new revelation from legendary director Clint Eastwood at age 95 has cracked that veil. I know there were people who didn't want her alive. In his latest interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Eastwood asserts that the 1970s were a dark era of Hollywood, where fame, love, and power blended into a poison that killed weak souls. He offered theories that Jean Seberg may have been monitored by the FBI, silenced, or forced to die under the invisible hands of forces that once sought to destroy her. And now the mystery of Jean Seberg lives again, like a grave that has never rested. 1. I reviewed the autopsy report. Many parts were redacted, many pages not even present in the public copy. On the night of August 30th, 1979, Jean Seberg disappeared from her small apartment in Paris's 16th arrondissement after leaving a message for her son, Diego. "I'm going out to buy cigarettes, I'll be right back." 10 days later, her body was found in a white Renault 5 parked less than 300 meters from her home on Avenue Victor Hugo. She was curled up in the back seat wearing a wool dress beside an empty bottle of secobarbital and a folded quarter-page note called a suicide letter by police, but never released in full. Forensics concluded she died of barbiturate poisoning combined with alcohol with time of death about 10 to 12 days earlier, matching the day she disappeared. But something didn't add up. A star experienced, intelligent, and worldly, why would she let herself die alone in a car? How could she drive herself, find the location, take the pills, and leave everything arranged without anyone noticing? These details sparked suspicion. Had someone else appeared, pushed her to the brink, or was the case covered up? Justice seems dim when recalling that Seberg was an FBI target monitored publicly, smeared with false rumors about her private life. The government and invisible forces had slowly strangled her, wearing down her spirit, leaving a beautiful actress with a fractured soul. Who could be certain that the mix of pressure, rumors, and loneliness didn't become a hand pushing her, rather than a choice she made herself? This question remains an unsolved mystery. Everything came to light only after Clint Eastwood's recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter. Few knew that before her death, Clint Eastwood and Jean Seberg once had a passionate, intense affair filled with wounds. At age 85, Clint revealed details he had kept secret for decades. I reviewed the autopsy report and discovered many redacted sections, many pages not even present in the public copy. The strangest thing Clint said, his voice heavy as if pressing down each memory, is that the body was found after days of decomposition, and there was suspicion the car couldn't have remained parked in the same spot from the moment she died until she was found without drawing attention. There's a possibility the car was moved after she died. I know these details, but the world has never been told the full truth. 2. She died, and part of it was because of me. Before diving into the case's suspicious points, let us explore their relationship. Clint Eastwood, at 95, sits alone in an old wooden house in Carmel by the Sea, afternoon sunlight slipping through the window across his wrinkled face. He holds a whiskey glass, eyes drifting toward the Pacific, but his mind wanders back to 1968 on the Oregon set of Paint Your Wagon. There he met Jean Seberg, the girl with the pixie cut and blue eyes that seemed to swallow the world. He remembers the first time she smiled at him, a smile so pure it made him a rough cowboy feel his heart stir. "Clint, you really can't sing," she once teased during a scene. He laughed loudly and replied, "You sing well, but don't expect me to dance along." Their romance began like a desert wind, quick, blazing, uncontrollable. He had Maggie at home, 2 children growing, but Jean was something else. She was fire life in the endless pine forest filming days. They secretly met after scenes in cabins under starry skies. He remembers how she rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "Clint, I've never felt this way before." He held her tighter, but deep inside a corner of his heart knew he wouldn't keep her. He was Clint Eastwood, a man of fleeting affairs, and Jean, he feared, loved him truly. When Romain Gary, her husband, arrived on set, everything became a tragic play. Gary, with aristocratic French demeanor and cold eyes, challenged him to a duel. "You dare steal my wife. You'll pay," Gary said, voice shaking with fury. Clint merely scoffed, shaking his head. "I don't fight anyone over a woman, Mr. Gary. She chooses for herself." The painful truth was that Jean chose Clint and let Gary leave. In that moment, Clint felt a thorn pierce his heart. He knew he hurt not only Jean, but another man. At 95, he wonders if he could have done differently or if youthful arrogance blinded him. When filming moved to Paramount Studios in Los Angeles, Clint chose to leave. No calls, no letters, no explanations. He saw Jean standing in a studio corner, eyes red, asking him, "Clint, what are we gonna do?" He only looked at her silently, then walked away. "That was my greatest mistake," he murmurs, now voice hoarse. He thought cutting ties would protect her, but he was wrong. Jean didn't need protection. She needed a man brave enough to stay. Later, when he heard Jean was pregnant and harassed by the FBI, Clint stood on the sidelines, powerless. He knew she was collapsing, partly because of him. He recalls the last time he saw her at a 1970 Hollywood party. Jean was thin, hollow-eyed, but still tried to smile. "Clint, are you all right?" she asked, voice soft as wind. He wanted to say something to apologize, but only nodded. "What about you?" Jean, she didn't answer, only looked at him for a long moment and walked away. That was the last he saw of her. In the years that followed, Clint constantly heard news of Jean Seberg's lingering depression, a quiet storm haunting her life. Even when spotlights shone on her beautiful face, inside were fears, loneliness, and deep wounds few could see. Thus, in 1979, when news of her suicide reached him, Clint was filming Escape from Alcatraz. He stood frozen among the crew, feeling the ground collapse beneath him. "She died, and part of it was because of me," he told himself, though he never said it aloud. He did not attend the funeral, sent no flowers, did nothing. He feared facing the truth that he had helped push her into darkness. "If I could go back, Jean, I wouldn't have left," he whispered, voice fading into the silence of his room. Waves at Carmel by the sea still crash, but inside him, a storm never ends. And Clint Eastwood quietly began a mission to uncover the truth behind Jean's death. 3. I need to know the truth because Jean's death has too many unanswered questions. After Jean's death, Clint couldn't accept what the newspapers published. To him, believing it was a clear suicide was impossible. He began investigating on his own, quietly and meticulously walking the Paris streets they once shared, examining autopsy reports, contacting veteran journalists from The Hollywood Reporter, The New York Times, and Le Monde, who also suspected many details had been omitted. "I need to know the truth," he told a reporter, voice trembling but firm, "not just for me, but for Jean." Reports showed Jean's blood alcohol level was so high she could not have driven, yet her body was found in the back seat as if she had moved herself there. Clint recalled every detail, imagining the car parked outside the 16th arrondissement apartment, no bottle visible beside her alcohol level high. And he asked himself, if she couldn't drive, then who placed her there? He highlighted other details investigators agreed were strange. The body found after days of decomposition, the likelihood the car had been moved, redacted, or missing pages from the public autopsy report. At that time, Jean Seberg had been monitored and targeted by the FBI for her civil rights and political activities, especially supporting the Black Panther Party, which the agency considered a domestic threat. COINTELPRO documents showed the FBI viewed her as a target to be neutralized, aiming to destroy her public reputation and weaken her political influence. The FBI not only monitored her, but deliberately spread false rumors about her private life, most notoriously the claim she was pregnant by a Black Panther member with no evidence. Their goal was psychological pressure, public isolation, and emotional collapse, leaving her vulnerable in the public eye. These tactics, combined with fame, professional pressure, and personal turmoil, pushed Jean into chronic anxiety and depression. The FBI saw her as a threat not because of specific acts, but because of her potential public influence, turning her from a movie star into a target of psychological warfare. Knowing all this, Clint investigated the FBI and COINTELPRO thoroughly. Declassified documents aligned with testimony from veteran journalists at The Guardian and The Washington Post. Jean was monitored, smeared, and isolated. Each detail haunted him. They destroyed her step by step. He sighed, and no one was held accountable. During long nights in Paris, Clint imagined Jean sitting in a dark room, drinking, taking sedatives, fighting loneliness and depression. He saw her despair, felt the pressure of public scrutiny, and his own helplessness. "She didn't simply commit suicide," Clint whispered. "She was pushed to the edge. Someone out there. I believe they were there." 4. The FBI used her daughter as a psychological weapon and caused Jean to miscarry in 1970. The first theory Clint Eastwood proposed was that Jean Seberg did not die. Simply, she was targeted and pressured by the FBI for supporting civil rights and the Black Panther Party. Everything began with a small clue in 1981 when Eastwood received an anonymous envelope sent to his Malpaso production office. Inside was a copy of a declassified FBI document marked COINTELPRO, Seberg Jean. It noted, subject donated $10,000 to the Black Panther Party in 1968 and participated in anti-Vietnam War protests in Los Angeles. The final line chilled him. Recommendation: neutralize by any means necessary. Neutralize, he repeated. That's code for killing. He knew the FBI had used the term regarding Martin Luther King Jr. before his assassination. Clint dug deeper. In 1985, he secretly met Jack Olson, a veteran Sports Illustrated journalist who investigated the Patty Hearst case. Olson took him to an abandoned warehouse in Oakland where the Panthers once met. There they found a cassette tape from a 1970 meeting. Jean's voice rang clear, "I will release the documents about the FBI killing Fred Hampton in Chicago. They cannot silence me." Olson whispered Jean had an insider source, a defected FBI agent. She planned to give the documents to the New York Times. Clint clenched his fists, and they eliminated her before she could. He recounted strange phone calls, anonymous letters Jean received before her death, and shadowy figures outside her Paris apartment watching her every move. "I believe someone was out there controlling everything. They wanted her afraid, alone, desperate," he said, voice trembling but determined. The rumors the FBI spread about Jean's private life tormented Clint, the lie that she carried a Black Panther's child despite no evidence. They used her daughter as a psychological weapon and caused Jean to miscarry in 1970, Clint said, voice breaking. Clint described how FBI agents manipulated information, moved evidence, and spread rumors to isolate Jean and destroy her credibility. They wanted her to collapse before the world to make her an example of what happens when you stand with civil rights, he whispered, eyes wet. Finally, Clint stood, his voice echoing through the room. "I have tracked every detail from the autopsy files to veteran journalists' reports," he murmured, voice deep and shaking. "And everything points to Jean being pushed to the brink by the FBI. But I have never been absolutely certain she didn't choose to leave on her own." 5. If she ended her own life, then it is the tragedy of a life filled with too much suffering, and no one could have saved her. From childhood, Jean Seberg endured much pain. She endured too much, loneliness, loss, and pressures unimaginable to ordinary people. He whispered, his voice trembling and heavy with guilt. Jean Seberg was born on November 13, 1938, in Marshalltown, Iowa, to a family of Swedish, English, and German descent. Her father was a pharmacist, her mother a teacher. Life in the Midwestern American town was safe, but conservative, making Jean early sense the difference between herself and the environment around her. From a young age, she was sensitive to loneliness and injustice, passionate about reading and longing to do something good for the world, part of the reason she later joined the civil rights movement. Jean was born in a small town in Iowa where everything followed traditional and conservative ways of life. From childhood, she was sensitive to injustice and loneliness. The childhood memories of separation, the feeling of not being understood, and the desire to find a place in the vast world planted in her the seeds of persistent solitude. She always longed to be seen and understood, but the world did not allow it, Clint whispered. A major turning point came when Jean was chosen by director Otto Preminger to play the lead in St. Joan 1957, a decision that took her from adolescence to the international stage. However, the film was criticized, and Jean struggled with the pressure of fame too early. Then the role of Patricia in Abu de Soufflot 1960 by Jean-Luc Godard turned her into a symbol of the new wave, but also brought public scrutiny, unrealistic expectations, and overwhelming pressure from public opinion. But that glamour came with tremendous weight, public scrutiny, pressure to succeed, and unrealistic demands from producers. Clint remembered she once told him that sometimes she felt like a beautiful puppet in the eyes of others, not a real person. Jean's career continued with many roles in France and the US, from Bonjour Tristesse to Paint Your Wagon and Airport. But from the late 1960s, her private life and political stance began to damage her career. Jean was targeted by the FBI for supporting the civil rights movement and donating to the Black Panther Party, monitored, subjected to false rumors, and placed under immense psychological pressure, making her increasingly isolated, both personally and professionally. Even Jean's romances were full of pain and loss. Jean Seberg entered love early and passionately, just like the way she lived. At 19, she married French lawyer François Moreuil only 2 years after becoming an international star. But the marriage quickly fell apart. Moreuil once said that Jean married for all the wrong reasons, and Jean realized she had entered marriage before even knowing who she was. The early breakup left her with guilt and loss, the beginning of a chain of emotional tragedies that followed. After that, Jean met the famous writer-pilot Romain Gary, a worldly, charismatic man with his own obsessions. They loved each other intensely, living together amid the romance and chaos of Paris. They had a son, Alexandre Diego Gary, but this marriage was also turbulent. Romain was jealous, and Jean increasingly fell into depression. Her career stalled. Rumors about her private life and being monitored by the FBI made the already fragile relationship suffocating. The fatal blow came when Jean lost her newborn daughter, Nina Hart Gary. The baby lived only 2 days. She was completely shattered. The media, under the silent influence of the FBI, spread rumors that the child's father was a member of the Black Panther Party, turning her private grief into public entertainment. Jean felt as if she had fallen off a cliff, not only losing her child, but being mocked, betrayed, and isolated in Paris. Since then, she no longer trusted love, and every relationship afterward, whether with celebrities or ordinary men, ended in ruin. In her final years, Jean lived with Ahmed Hasni, who was believed to have taken advantage of her and deceived her into selling property and losing money. The small apartment in Paris that once sheltered her from public pressure eventually became a place filled with fear and despair. Jean's romances, from early dazzling light to ultimate darkness, were not just a series of failed relationships, but the marks of a woman who loved completely and was burned by that very love. According to psychological records from Jean's Paris doctor in 1974, she was diagnosed with severe bipolar disorder with delusions. The doctor wrote, "The patient attempts suicide on August 25th every year, the anniversary of Nina's death. From 1974, 1975, 1976, 1977, 1978. Once a year, Jean took Valium, jumped in front of subway trains. She had been dying slowly for a long time," Clint said loudly before the Renault even appeared. The tragedies in her life made Jean's depression increasingly severe. She became haunted by failures in relationships, isolation in her career, and pressure from public opinion. Malicious comments in newspapers and rumors about her private life caused her to withdraw, avoid communication, and feel that the world no longer had a place for her. Besides depression, Jean also struggled with alcohol and sedatives as a way to soothe the pain, but this only increased her self-destructive tendencies. In addition, her film career became unstable after being monitored by the FBI. Jean lost many major roles, her image was damaged, and she was no longer respected in the industry where she had once been a star. Everything she loved seemed to slip out of her hands, Clint recalled. Every career setback was another knife to her heart. He remembered the long nights she sat in a dark room writing desperate notes, drinking alcohol and sedatives, trying to keep peace in her soul, but failing. She wasn't just physically tired, Clint said, voice trembling. She was mentally exhausted, tired of the whole world. Doctors who had hospitalized Jean noted that she had a very high risk of suicide, especially on anniversaries of her daughter's death and stressful career periods. The amount of alcohol and barbiturates in her body when she died also indicated a severe self-destructive act. Clint muttered as he looked at the forensic reports, his voice choking. Every sign shows that the pain beyond endurance turned into her final decision. Therefore, Clint concluded, if she ended her own life, he whispered, then it is the tragedy of a life filled with too much suffering, too much despair, and no one could have saved her. 6. I regret it down to my bones for having helped break your heart and perhaps your entire life. From the 70s to the 80s, Clint Eastwood was known as the most charming womanizer. He married Maggie Johnson in December 1953, beginning a marriage considered traditional, but always on the verge of challenges. They had 2 children, Kyle and Allison, but during this period, Clint continuously became entangled in extramarital affairs. Maggie, the woman who endured his youth, still looked at him with patient eyes. You will never change, will you? Maggie once asked, her voice both tender and bitter. Clint sighed, knowing the answer was true. No, Maggie. I just follow my heart, and that heart has never stopped searching. Clint had an affair with Roxanne Tunis. Kimber, the child born outside the marriage, was proof of mistakes he never fixed. Clint told himself, I hurt her, more than I dare admit. But he still didn't stop, still drawn to new doors, new glances. Every relationship was an escape from himself, a breath, a moment of living. While still married to Maggie, Clint began living with Sandra Locke in 1975. This relationship lasted nearly 15 years, with all the love and conflict before Locke sued him for fraud. The relationship, once hidden, became a contradictory chapter in Clint's life, making his free-spirited man image both alluring and controversial. If Sandra was fiery, Jocelyn Reeves was a secret dream with 2 children born in the shadows unacknowledged. Clint looked at them, eyes filled with both pride and guilt. "I want to be a good father, but I only know how to be myself," he thought. Every child's laughter was a reminder responsibility is not only love, but presence. In the late 1980s, Clint dated Frances Fisher, and they had a daughter, Francesca, in 1993. This relationship broke when Clint had another child with someone else, and criticism began to pour in. He looked into Francesca's eyes, silently promising, "I will try not to hurt you anymore." But deep down, he knew his mistakes were too many to make up for. His second marriage with Dina Ruiz began in 1996, with their only child together, Morgan. This time, Clint seemed to find peace. But the marriage lasted about 17 years and ended in 2013. This failure was a painful reminder. Even when he loved, Clint struggled to maintain full commitment, and freedom always pulled him away from the arms of the woman he loved. In 2014, he met Christina Sandera, a quiet companion in his later years. They shared peaceful moments amidst the noisy world, but tragedy did not spare them. Sandera died in July 2024. Clint stood before the emptiness, realizing that love and loss had become familiar companions. Christina Sandera, his near-final love, was a gentle comfort in his old age. They laughed together, were silent together, and he whispered inside, "I know I don't deserve you, but you are still here beside me." When Christina left, Clint watched her go, knowing that everyone he loved would leave, leaving him with the sea, the wind, and nameless loneliness. But no matter who came after, Clint Eastwood always longed for the radiant smile of Jean Seberg in the 70s. "Jean," he whispered, his voice hoarse and shaking. "At that time, I was too flirtatious, too consumed by overlapping affairs that I abandoned you without a word. I thought cutting ties would protect you, but I was wrong. My coldness and selfishness pushed you deeper into the darkness of depression. You needed a man brave enough to stay, but I was just a runaway cowboy. I regret it, Jean. Regret it down to my bones for having helped break your heart and perhaps your entire life." 7. As long as I live, I will find the truth. Now at 95, Clint Eastwood remains the most enduring icon. He held a glass of water, no more whiskey, and looked out at the Pacific. "I am no longer the immortal cowboy on screen," he said, his voice hoarse but clear. "But I am still here, still breathing, still walking every morning. That is what I'm most proud of." He recalled 2024 when Christina Sandera suddenly died of a heart attack. That was the biggest shock, he whispered, eyes gazing far away. "I thought I would go before her. But life doesn't follow a script." He paused, then continued. "Losing Christina weakened me, not my body, but my spirit. I slept less, ate less, but I didn't let it drown me." Regarding physical health, Eastwood was blunt. "I can't run or lift heavy weights anymore. My bones crack every morning, especially my knees and hips." He chuckled. "The doctor says I have osteoporosis, but I don't take medicine. I just walk, stretch, and do a few yoga moves Allison taught me." He stood, taking a few steps around the room. See, still steady. No cane, no wheelchair. Although his body weakened, his mind remained sharp. He recalled film shoots, intense action scenes, and roles that kept him awake at night. Now, just climbing a few stairs or standing too long tires me, he said slowly, but my mind keeps working, remembering every shot, every memory. Last year, during the filming of Juror Number 2, he had an unidentified health issue, chest pain, that panicked the crew. I had to rest for 3 days. He said the doctor said it was high blood pressure due to stress. I lay in the hospital bed thinking, is this the end? But I got up, finished the film. That was the first time I was scared not of dying, but of not finishing the story. He laughed loudly. I will die on a film set, not in a hospital bed. He spoke of his 90-10 diet, 90% vegetables, fish, nuts, 10% whatever. I enjoy a slice of toast with peanut butter on Sundays. He pointed at the fridge. No canned food, no soda. I eat like ancient humans, simple, clean. He remembered his father dying early of heart disease. I won't repeat that. I control what goes into my mouth. Regarding mental health, Eastwood admitted, I am lonely. Christina's death left a huge void. I don't look for someone to replace her at this age. Love is grandkids, is cinema. He opened a photo album. This is Graylin, my granddaughter, 5 years old. She pulls me out of bed every morning. I play golf with her, teach her to fly model helicopters. That's why I'm still alive. He looked out to the sea, his voice lowering. I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of not living fully. Every morning I wake up, I ask, what will I do today to not waste it? He stepped out onto the balcony. I still direct, still write. My next project is in my head. I won't retire. Retirement is dying slowly. Clint Eastwood closed his eyes for a moment, inhaled deeply, then reopened them, still bright with determination. He exhaled slowly, his voice hoarse, blending exhaustion and resilience. As long as I live, I will find the truth. No matter how many years it takes, no matter how tired the body, no matter how time runs out, I will not let that secret die with me. He smiled the smile of someone who has defeated time. Jean once said, Clint, you will live forever. She was slightly wrong. I will live long enough to finish my story. The death of Jean Seberg, a woman who once shone on screen and became a symbol of a Franco-American cinematic era, still sends chills when mentioned. Her sorrowful passing, with loneliness and pressure from public opinion, serves as a cruel reminder that external glamour can never cover internal pain. Clint Eastwood, in his confessions about relationships and the past, makes audiences wonder, can the brilliant light of a career truly soothe the darkness every human must bear? What do you think about Clint Eastwood's confessions and revelations? Is he truly regretful, or is this simply how a cinematic legend reflects on himself amid loneliness and past mistakes? If you find this content compelling and want to explore more stories behind Hollywood's dazzling lights, please subscribe to not miss future articles and analyses. Thank you for reading and staying with us.